Hello, my name is Franco Lofranco. I'm an entrepreneur and author of the Results Vortex Accelerator. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about spirituality, vibrational energy, entering the vortex to achieve your results in record time, and how you could do that in your business, in your relationships, and any other goal you may have. Stay tuned. It will be an epic episode.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back, Beate Gillette here. Today I'm talking to Cavalieri, Franco Lofranco. And just the name itself is like a song. Franco, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
I'm a big fan, excited to be on here with you. We're going to have some fun today. It's going to be great. And you said the name so great. I love it.
I'll record it for you, and then you can just send it to everybody and put it on your LinkedIn profile as an introduction, which I do.
My phone ring.
Oh, there you go. You are now talking to Cavalieri Franco.
That's funny.
All right. So I wanted you on our show because you have a very interesting thought process around success, money, and shifting motivation and purpose when people actually make money. So before we get started, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you? Who are you? What do you do? How do you help people solve problems?
Sure. I was born to Italian immigrants that moved to Canada when they were very young. And so I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and that's where I spent most of my life. And then I got tired of the cold and I left. I moved to Arizona, where it's nice and warm and sunny every single day. And it's been a great journey along the way. I started my very first company when I was 22 years old. I had a dad who always told me, Franco, when you get older, you have to always start your own company. He brainwashed me with that when I was 3 or 4 years old. And so at the age of 22, started my very first company. I've owned companies ever since. Been a great journey of mine. When I first started, my first few companies all failed. I didn't know what I was doing. Very expensive lessons to learn. And then I started into personal growth and development journey. And coincidentally, that also coincided with success in business. Versus before I had any type of personal development, I lacked in success in business. Usually they go hand in hand, as you know. So that's not an accident. So as I continued on my leadership, personal development journey and learning more and getting great mentors in my life and teaching me and books and courses, so too the companies grow and expanding in different businesses and different industries, and learned a lot of lessons from how to enjoy the journey to suffering is optional, suffering is not necessary, to all that stuff, and understanding what really matters and what's important, and how to live in the now, how to live in the present, how to enjoy relationships, how to enjoy everything that you're doing in your business, regardless of how mundane the task might be. Because in business, there's a lot of mundane tasks we got to do when you're building a company. And how do you do that? So yeah, it's been an interesting journey along the way over the last 3 decades, and wouldn't change it for anything. It's been amazing.
Thank you for that. I like the thought that you said spirituality, that when you dove deeper in your spirituality, success became more prominent. I'd like to stay there for a moment. What does that exactly mean for you? Was there a moment where you hit a roadblock and you said anything but this? Was there a wake-up call, or was it a gradual where you said this is just ridiculous? There has to be a better way. How did you get to that?
That's a great question. So my first 3 companies all failed. And who was at the source of all 3? Me. So I could have blamed outside sources and other people. And look, there's equally valid reasons why you could, right? Oh, bad timing in the market, this, that. I have a great cousin of mine who's like a big older brother to me, great guy. And he said, Franco, the person in common with all 3 is you. Take some courses. Here's a couple of courses you should take. Learn some personal development and see why you're the source of it. All right. So what have I got to lose? So I started taking some personal development courses that he recommended. And I realized that who's the source of it was me. And it was my own arrogance, my own. I lacked so. I had no self awareness. I literally lived inside my head. And what I every all the thoughts that came into my head, I thought were real. I thought those were real thoughts. And then when I started into the spiritual journey, self awareness journey, I started to recognize the thoughts aren't me; they're just thoughts. And I was honoring those thoughts like they were me. And I couldn't see the forest for the trees. And so when I started to step outside of myself, I could actually see how I operated outside of my thoughts. And it wasn't a pretty picture. I was very arrogant, very condescending, bringing people down, belittling people. I go, no wonder, because one of the things I couldn't do was build teams. I couldn't build structures. People didn't want to work with me. And I made them wrong and other people wrong for that versus looking within. But even then, I didn't know how to look within. I didn't have the tools to look within. I didn't understand that was a thing. It's like when Helen Keller, before she recognized water on her hand, right? Nothing existed for her. There was nothing existed. The world didn't exist. The minute she got water, the whole world opened up to her. The whole world became a possibility. She finally understood what was going on. Same thing with me. And I was 28 years old when that moment happened to me, and I really got, wow, who am I? What am I doing here? Who am I being in life? I got the concept of being and why we're human beings and what that actually even means. Because none of us even talk about that, or we're all busy doing stuff, right? But we're not human doers. We're human beings. And so when I got that concept, and then I started dwelling into that realm, that's when the world became available to me. And then I listened to people differently. People occurred differently to me, what they were saying. I actually heard what they were saying, not what I thought they were saying. And if I wasn't clear, then I would ask questions versus making assumptions. It became a truly magical space. It really did. It literally felt like I'm awake now for the very first time.
What I like about what you just said is that you talk about this as if there was a moment where you realized there was a commonality in this and that it was difficult, and what was difficult was you. I had a moment like you when I sort of realized that I guess I must have been a complete jerk because I was every day when after I sold my company and I took a position there as a global director for entertainment, every day at lunch, when I would go to the bathroom, my whole team had gone to lunch without me, and then they couldn't find me. And I'm like, well, this happens really every day. And if it happens every day, and it happens every time I go to the bathroom, and then they all really run out. I guess there's a lesson here for you. So you said that you weren't getting the responses that you wanted to, and the realization that it is you. Was it difficult for you? I mean, can we just be like super honest and transparent? Was this painful for you to realize that the problem was you and that you kind of were off your best game here?
It was tough and a relief at the same time, because when you see the solution, either you can embrace it or you can reject it, right? And so I'll give you an example. After my first three companies failed, I started getting into personal development, reading books on leadership, all that stuff. And I brought on a gentleman who, very successful guy. He comes from one of the most successful company families in all of Canada, and he was the vice president of the company that I had started. And we had just raised $40 million to start the company, and we're a month in. We're hiring people. We're doing great. And I had just gone through transformation, seeing stuff, understanding things, but you're still a little baby in the water, right? Still learning how to swim. Just because you saw something doesn't mean now it's implemented in your life and it's clear. There's still all those bad habits that are still there. So he comes into my office 30 days, literally 30 days after we start. And he goes, Franco, I've been here a month now. And this guy has been the VP of major companies. So he's seen a thing or two. Plus his father and his family, very successful, built some of the largest companies in North America. So he understands a little thing or two. So he walks into my office and he goes, Franco, do you mind if I give you some feedback? I said, sure, love to get your feedback.
Naive, unsuspecting
Yeah,
you.
let's go. Let's go. He goes, well, listen, I got good news and I got bad news. What do you want first? I go, give me the good news. He goes, well, the good news, look, everything's going great right now. It's awesome. People are hiring. People are excited, doing great. Okay, so good. What's the bad news? Bad news is I don't think we're going to make it. What? I thought you said we're doing good. No, I don't think we're going to make it. And I said, why? And he said, because of you.
No way.
I go, what do you mean because of me? Let me tell you, your ego is way too big. And because your ego is so big, you're going to repel people, repel clients, repel a success. People can only tolerate that for a certain period of time. After that, they'll say goodbye when the next opportunity comes by. And look, we're in startup mode and we can't afford that. You need to grow.
Oh, wow.
And I literally, like, as I'm saying this to you, I'm back into that
No,
office.
I felt that energy. I'm like, this is a real oh shit moment here.
Oh, I'm right back into that office, staring at me, looking at me. I'm like, so here's what I said. What do I do? I'm like, but now I'm at a point where I can
Help
hear.
me.
Look, but here's the good news. At that point, I was in a spot where I could hear that conversation.
Okay.
A couple of years earlier, I would have told them to get out of here, get lost. You don't know what you're talking about. We're going to be great. Go
Buzz
do
off.
your
Yeah.
job. Yeah,
Mhm.
buzz off. But I was in a spot then where I say, okay, I got it. And it gave me something to be responsible for, like a possibility. And so I started listening. I said, okay, I got it. Give me some recommendations. So I said, remember when you talked to this person, you said that, how about saying it this way? This way, when you said, I said, okay. So he gave me some great constructive feedback. I said, okay. And he just had me think about things in a different way. When you do this meeting, you do this all staff meeting, instead of saying this, say this. Oh, okay. Got it. Very good. And we had a great conversation. It didn't last very long, but it was one of the most transformational conversations of my life because he hit me right between the eyes. And
So
he, and I
that was the day you learned how to reframe.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Really reframe language and how to say things in a whole different way. Like, for example, instead of saying, "Hey, you're not very good at this," or you're not, how about saying this? "Hey, you did great. How about we fine tune a few things?" Right. So he just taught me some really basic stuff, but along the way to do that. And then a couple of weeks later, I had another gentleman, also older, senior in the company. And back then, I was into working out and looking good. I'm gonna look good. So I walk into his office, and it's funny, when you're in growth mode, where people can tell you anything. That's when you know you're in growth mode. So I walk into his office, and he goes, "Franco, close the door." I said, "Okay." And he said to me, "Franco, can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You know, you're not your body." Excuse me? You're my VP of marketing. What are you talking about? You're the VP of marketing. What are you saying to me? He goes, this is like a 60-year-old man, right? You're not your body. You're more than that. You have a soul. You have more than that. You're not your body. Don't be trapped by what you look like. That's all I wanted to tell you. Okay. And I walked out. I go, wow, this is amazing. Actually, I felt really blessed and privileged to have these people around me that are willing to have these conversations with someone like me. So it was really great. I learned about that. And that's where I said, am I working out because I want to be healthy, or I'm working out because it's all because of vanity? Which is it? And because I'm trying to control things with my looks versus just something that I'm committed to. I want to be healthy. I want to look good. And he really had me thinking about that. And it really released a lot of stress for me, that I didn't have to be perfect all the time and look perfect all the time and have all the right appearance all the time. I could just relax and wear a regular shirt if I want to, or regular pants if I want to, and not have to be perfect all the time. So that was an incredible growing part of my life.
I like that. Even though I will say that ever so often when there's a difficult situation, I do recommend as a strategy, especially for a very buff man, to wear a skin tight black t-shirt and then walk into the room with just a jeans and a skin tight black t-shirt to make sure that you look buff. There was an instant in my life where somebody had just made up really horrible rumors about me. And my husband wanted to confront him. And I said, all you need to do is wear that skin tight black t shirt and then just walk in the room like you own it, because he does. He's a very confident man. And the guy, after the last bite of the second course, ran and was never to be seen again. So, I mean, there is a strategy to use physical appearance in business, so that we have discussed that.
Well, but that's a great example. He owned it. Like, that was intentional versus happening at a subconscious level out of insecurity, right? You're 100% correct. Is, do you own it, or are you being owned by it?
Yes, and I think to your point, that's really important in the raising of self-awareness, because I think what we've really talked about, I want to make sure that the Beehive understands that, is that in the development of your self-awareness, it comes with a couple of these oh shit moments. Let's just be clear about that, where you say, this is how I come across, and this is what other people think of me. but I'm direct, I'm honest, I don't want to waste any time, I'm just this, I'm just that, I'm just that. So when sort of these band-aids were ripped off, Franco, and the wound was bleeding, the ego was bleeding, how did you manage that emotionally? Because there's not a chance in hell this was all easy. I mean, now we can laugh about it, but I remember when I go through this, man, that's tough. I mean, there are a couple come to Jesus moments in there where you go, "What's wrong with me?" Did you have that, and how did you get through that?
That's a great question. So I had a great coach and mentor, and he said to me, when those moments happen, you are not allowed to make yourself wrong. Because if you are making yourself wrong when those moments happen, it's more of the same.
Mm,
I said, "Oh, got it. So you have no." Here's what he said to me: "You have no permission to make yourself wrong when that happens. Zero. Your job and your goal is to look at, okay, what happened? Here's what happened. What was the impact on other people? Is there any communication I need to have with those people to clean that up with them, get that complete with them? What do I need to do? Is there anything I need to say? And then, but don't make yourself wrong when you're doing that. You can apologize, absolutely, but do not make yourself wrong because you're still a person and a human being. And human beings will always make mistakes. Extraordinary people versus ordinary people will address that, clean that up with people, and move on and learn from them. I'm like, okay, got it. And then put it in structure so it limits from that happening again. Now, it may still happen again because we're people and we're stuff happens, but at least you've now starting to put in structures so it limits that from happening in the future, given what your commitments are in life. So be led by your commitments, not by your guilt. And I'm like, okay, I got it. So whenever those moments would happen, his voice would ring in my head. Can't make myself wrong. Take accountability, take responsibility, clean up what needs to be cleaned up, create whatever I want to create out of it. Let them know what I'm committed to. Listen, I'm committed to this moving forward. Here's what you can count on me for. Let's go.
it's almost like accountability is a strategy, is what I'm hearing, because and I never even thought about it like this, Franco, until you just said that. Because if I say and I have a situation like this with something, there was a no-win situation, somebody was gonna have their feelings hurt. Either this whole thing was gonna blow up or somebody's feelings were gonna hurt. There was just no way around it. Sometimes you just have to own that. So the vulnerability is then the strategy, or the humility is the strategy when you come from that perspective. Is that how that works?
Well, I'll look at it this way. If you want to have power in life and have a say how things go, accountability is a must. Otherwise, you have no say. You just become a victim to that circumstance. Now, you're more than welcome to be a victim to something. I don't recommend it because you just get disempowered. You become, for some people, they become mute. They don't talk. They go into a shell. Other people become overbearing. Everybody becomes different, right? So I had a mentor who said, Franco, the more you're willing to have accountability in your life, the more power you will have even in areas that make no sense for you to have accountability, that maybe there was somebody else is accountable. But if you're willing to take accountability in all areas of your life, you will always have more power. And the less accountability you will have, the less power and more victimhood will exist in your life. And so I take that to heart. I take that to heart. To me, it's like a formula. It's a one-to-one formula. So do I want to be powerful? Do I want to have a say in how my life goes? Great. Be accountable. And if I don't, then I won't.
My husband has a good way to phrase this. He says, "If I have to fall in the knife, I'll fall in the knife." And I always thought that was so extreme that he said that. What do you mean by falling in the knife? But then I really used that phrase in the situation that I'm experiencing right now. And I said, look, I had the option between this or falling into the knife. I said, and I choose to fall into the knife and take full responsibility for that, because from where I came from, there was no other choice that I had, in my opinion. So I had to pick the lesser of the two, but there was a knife. And so willingly I fell into it. And it really resonates with people, interestingly enough, because they go like, okay, so here's somebody who understood that there was a situation that was difficult. And in leadership,
It's a must.
it happens all the time. I mean, if you have to let somebody go, if you have to tell somebody that they did not a great job, or somebody made a mistake that cost you a lot of money, these things have to be addressed. And that person most likely is not going to walk out skipping and dancing, but that person can walk out with a better understanding or more self-awareness, or a conversation around how to avoid these things in the future. I mean, this can go all kinds of different ways. So I think this was very important what we talked about, that spirituality in that sense isn't just necessarily woo woo and Jesus, one source, universe, spirit, but it is an internal source of taking internal accountability. So, how does that now relate to an external spiritual concept? Is it the same? Is it the same energy? How do you reconcile that?
Well, if you think about what is going goes on internally, ultimately gets shown externally, right? So let's think the opposite. Let's say you're somebody constantly in victimhood, constantly not taking accountability, constantly blaming. What happens on the outside? Do people want to be with you? How are people left, right? What is their experience of being around you? What are the results that happen around you, right? So you can always see it's funny when you talk to a person, I can almost by talking to somebody tell you how much money's in their bank account or what's in their life. Almost not 100%, but pretty close by how they speak, by how they talk. Because one thing I've learned is if you're somebody very successful people, like people that are more successful than me, almost never speak down to me. The people, and they're almost never say things negative about anything I may be doing or taking on. But if there's people less successful or just not successful, man, do they complain? Do they bring up stuff? Why are you doing that? That's crazy. I'm
Unfair.
100%, 100%. Now, obviously, I'm speaking in generalities here, right?
No, no, no. I don't think you're speaking in generality. I think it's true. I mean, I used to be a photo editor at Elle magazine and in Germany, and part of what I did is we took photos and I organized the shoots with some of the world's greatest authors, Olympians. I mean, people that are at the top one in their field. And I learned one thing: the further up the ladder you go, the more respect and professionalism there is. When I hear these stories about the 600 count thread sheets of stars when they go to places, I already know they're insecure. They're having to make all of this up to make themselves be more because somebody truly successful, truly, truly, truly successful will make anything work. I mean, unless it's really detrimental or dangerous, right? But I think you are absolutely correct. I think that a very important understanding is that when you do your own work and you step into that power of self awareness, and that's how you show up, you're now vibrating with a whole different set of people. Now, let's talk about that strategy. So once you figure that out, right? And now you are vibrating on this, what would we call it? More self aware, more elevated consciousness?
I call it a higher plane, higher
Okay.
vibrational plane.
And now what happens? How do you put that as a strategy in motion to now attract real success, financial success, relationship success, friendship success? How do you do that?
It's a great question. You don't need to, because the higher vibrational frequency you have, the more that naturally will come to you. It's kind of like opening up a vortex in the fabric of space and time, where now that starts to rearrange itself in your favor. So to me, like we can operate at all different types of frequencies. The lower the frequency range, the less stuff. Have you ever noticed that people that are very negative, exhausting, like everything seems to be in slow motion around them? It feels like you're with rocks. Like nothing is moving. Like you're just exhausted. Like walk into a government office. What is the experience of walking into a government office? It is like, is anybody alive in here? What is happening? Because everybody just moves really, really slow, right? And then if you walk into, I'm just going to use a high tech company office, and it's everything's happening, everything's shaking, like the people are moving 24. It's a whole different vibe that you're attracting, and that's why they're attracting each other and working at that different speed, and they're attracting clients like that, people like that, partners like that, investors like that, board of directors like that. It all gets attracted like that. It's like a founder mindset, right? It's very, very powerful. So I don't worry about that. I worry about if I can keep my vibrational energy high enough, the rest will get take care of itself. It will align. They will come in, because one thing I do know, like energy likes to be around like energy. It abhors the opposite. It absorbs lower. It can't function in that space. So if you just focus on the higher, keeping yourself at a higher vibrational state, you watch. I have a sign in my office that says expect miracles. It says expect miracles. And when you're in a higher vibrational state, I would recommend to expect miracles because they will happen.
Yes, and you and I, we're both big fans of Abraham Hicks. And when she really got this concept clear to me of it's not just necessarily about the law of attraction, but it's a law of vibration, that I have to find something that I can vibrate on and then stretch that into all other areas of my life. And I literally sat down, Franco, and I thought about what is that one event that will immediately get me into that mindset? It's the birth of my granddaughter. And, when I'm in that room and I visualize her being born, I'm immediately in this state of gratitude and love and miracles, because that is the miracle of life. So I think that this is a really important part, because the strategy here on this show for this particular interview is there is no strategy. The strategy is for you to get your spiritual alignment sorted out, to take your accountability, and to then go into this vibration to stay there. So, what do you do, Franco, to stay in that vibration? Is there a practice you do? Is there, I mean, we talked about Abraham Hicks, which I highly recommend everybody, sometimes, many times in the mornings when I do, get out of the shower and I do my makeup, there's like a 15-minute segment that you can watch on YouTube. And that kind of gets me in a good vibration for the day. What do you do? What's your practice?
That's a great question. So I actually wrote a journal book of what I do every single day that I created for my organization that people can buy on Amazon if they want to go on there. It's called the Results Vortex Accelerator. It's how do you get into the vortex and stay in there all day. I actually wrote a whole like, how do I do that? Whether when you wake up in the morning, create a gratitude journal and be grateful for everything in your life, and then how to enter the vortex. So a couple times a day you will imagine and visualize your goals, what you want to achieve. Literally put yourself in there because your mind is powerful. It's an attraction magnet. It is the most powerful thing that we have. And so you can literally through your own mind, and I talk about in the book how you can excel, how you can activate it. 8 to 12 minutes a day doesn't take very long. I do it a couple times a day, morning and night, where then you can really create for yourself that vibrational energy that gets you into that vortex where now things start to align for you in a way that otherwise they wouldn't. Ideas will come to you that otherwise wouldn't have come to you. People will come to you that otherwise they would never have come to you. They'll call you. You'll meet them like randomly, like, wow, how did you come into my life? This is amazing. You came at the perfect time. A sign will come in. Oh, that I was meant to see that. And so that's all signs that you're in the vortex. And then it's how do you stay there? Because it's easy to get out, right? Things come to you, like issues come to you, problems come to you. They want to knock you out of it. Well, that's cool. And that's going to happen. But then how do you keep yourself in that vortex to keep going in that time and space? So, yeah, there's ways you can do it for sure, what to focus on and what to do. And on a daily, I have practices that do that. And it doesn't take very long. You're talking 20, 30 minutes. It doesn't take very long. Like being grateful, 5, 10 minutes every morning. But that just sets the foundation. The being grateful part to me is one of the most critical parts of a day because it literally sets the foundational part of creating that good energy. Otherwise, you're literally building on poop, right? Like you wake up in the morning. I don't know about you. I wake up negative. Like I wake up like, oh, what did I forget to do today? I can't believe I forgot that. Maybe I had a bad dream. I don't know. I don't wake up naturally excited. I woke up. I gotta get up. I gotta go do this. I gotta go do that. Right. So the minute I get into my grateful mode, like everything shifts. It's absolutely incredible. And for me, it has to be intentional. Now, I know for some people they wake up happy, and that's not me. So I'm just not, that's not how I wake up. But I've got to eventually put myself there, which is cool. So I get it. I got to own that and be responsible for myself to do that.
The
So
only
some
person I know that wakes up really, really happy is my granddaughter, because when she wakes up and I was just there over the weekend and I walk into the room, she couldn't be happier that I just showed up. But other than that,
kids do. That's good. Kids, a lot of kids do. Actually a good point. A lot of kids can do that.
yeah, so I like this idea of saying, what do I need to do? I like true crime, and the more I do of this work, the more I question on whether or not I should be doing this, because and you're just laughing. You're like, "This does not need an answer, sister." Um,
Oh, that's funny.
so I think that there's also this part of when you allow news and you allow certain things to come into your sphere, My mother-in-law watches news 24/7, and it creates this loop of negativity that the world is coming to an end, AI will be taking over, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. That's a choice to live there because for all of these things, and I really want to kind of like end the show with that. Maybe you can add some more examples to that as well. Is if we focus on that people are primarily good and that we walk into these conversations to have the conversation, not necessarily to get an outcome, but to say, hey, this showed up. I'm going to lean into this. I see where it goes. That we have much more beneficial outcomes if we make it about the event and the here, which we talk about in growth architecture all the time. How do you view that to be sort of more present and to then not let you get self drifted in some future image of your next raving success?
No, that's a great. Well, listen, I have a saying: the environment always wins. So whatever environment you're in that moment or that time, it will always win. So if you're careful about what environment you're in, now you can dictate how you feel, what you're creating, what you're doing, right? So, like for example, like your mom that's watching the news all day, well, that's designed to be negative. Why? It's designed to hook you, right? It's designed to addict you. That's the purpose of news, right? The purpose of news is not to inform. I wish it was. It's not to inform, right? It's to addict you to keep coming back so they can sell more advertising and make more money, which is cool. But how they do that is through fear and scare and getting people anxious and anxiety. And well, that's why most people that watch cable news are unfortunately seniors, right? Because they're at home, they're watching that, they're addicted to it. So I remember I did a real quick story years ago. I used to be like that. I used to when CNN first came out. Remember in the 2000s when the channel that the I was addicted to it. Like I was like watching it all the time, and I noticed myself getting negative and feeling tired. And so I did a test. I said I will watch no news for 6 months, like nothing. So okay. So I literally stopped watching news for 6 months. And then after 6 months, I said, okay, now I'm going to go back and rewatch. Let's see what happened. So I go back after nothing, like literally cold turkey, nothing. I turn on the news. Nothing changed. It was exactly the same. All that changed was a different name, a different location. But then I realized the pattern. I saw the pattern. That was the key, right? I actually saw the pattern. So, and that's when like, okay, I get this now. And then since that day, I've just lost total interest in news and all that stuff. Now, I do go to some sources. There's some very powerful podcasts I like to listen to and learn, but these are topics that I'm interested in, people that I admire or I respect in certain areas that I want to learn from and listen to, and people like that. So it becomes very different. So we have to be very discerning today where we get our information. Now, look, if you want to go in there and go into the drama and junk like on X and have some fun, go ahead for a few minutes, but don't get lost there for hours.
I
Go
mean,
for
I will say after the presidential debate, I did watch a whole bunch of memes on the eating cats and dogs, and I was thoroughly entertained of the creativity. Uh,
it was, yeah. Some people are great. Their content providers are awesome. It's fun. So give yourself some time for sure.
so I said, I'm just going to see what my people are going to be doing with this, and they did not disappoint. But then I like the idea to just take all of this with a grain of salt. So what I'm taking away from this conversation with you today is that you make it almost sound easy to lean into this. So for somebody who's struggling with taking the first step, aside from getting your book, is there anything else you want to share with them to help them to let go of this drama and the stress of the push, 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 and easing in from the persuasion model into the attraction model? What can we tell them as a first step?
A couple things. Number one, suffering is optional. And the only reason why you want to suffer is to make yourself wrong. That's the only reason, to beat yourself up. That's why I say it's optional and you have a choice. In that moment, you can just choose to be happy, right? It's a choice. Like in that moment, you can just choose to be happy. You don't have to beat yourself up. That's beating yourself up and being a victim is a habit, just like everything else. And because the good news is because a habit, you can shift that habit. And that how do you shift the habit? Look for what's good, being grateful, being positive, thinking about, okay, what's another way I can look at what happened? Well, this person did this, or that this client left me. Okay, what could be another absurd way of looking at this? Well, maybe I'm just too good looking for them, and they couldn't handle it. And they couldn't handle it, and they had to go to an uglier person to take care of them. Like, you can
I
think
did
of
not think that you would say that.
I know. So you can think of the most absurd things and have fun with it. Like, life is fun, right? If you just make life fun, you'll have such a great experience of life and not be so significant. Like, at the end of the day, we're all going to end up dead. We're all here. We're not going to get out of this.
And
We
you're
can't.
not taking that Ferrari with you.
No, unfortunately not. And all we have a choice is what's going to be on your tombstone. And on my tombstone, I wanted to say, you know what? He had a blast. He had fun. He created things, made an impact, made a lot of people feel good. What do you want it to stay in your tombstone at the end of the day?
We are the same on that. I always said that at the end of my life, I want to go out with a big fat party, no crying because I have a phenomenal life. And I wanted to say, here lays a woman who made an impact.
I love it. I love it. It's inspiring. So you got me. I'm so inspired by that. I love it. It's so great.
Right? And then that's all really I inspire. So for somebody who now wants to learn more about what you do, which we really didn't tell anybody, but maybe follow you or listen to your musings or insights. Obviously, we're going to send them over to get the book on Amazon. So we'll put that in the links below. Is there any other way they can reach out or
They can
follow
reach
you?
me. Yeah, they can reach me directly on Instagram, Cav Franco, CAV Franco, and I'm happy to address messages there or get in touch with people there whenever I can. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was very selfishly a great pleasure for me to talk to you. And that's it for us for today. And remember what Cavaliere Franco told you, it is a choice. You make that choice every single day. Make it wisely because that happens to be the life you choose for yourself. And we want you to show up and make an impact that you came here to do. And with that, I say goodbye. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.